President Joe Biden prepares to leave office, he's making a pitch for his economic legacy, in particular, his investments in infrastructure. You may remember last year, his former chief of staff, Ron Klain, reportedly said this about how Biden talked about those bipartisan achievements on the campaign trail. Quote, I think the president is out there too much talking about bridges. He does 2 or 3 events a week where he's cutting a ribbon on a bridge. If you go into a grocery store and you know milk and eggs are expensive, the fact that there's an effing bridge is not, I think that it doesn't get covered that much because, look, it's an effing bridge. And yet, in the final days of his presidency, Biden has kept coming back to bridges.
The mistake we made was, I think I made, was not getting our allies to acknowledge that the Democrats did this. So, for example, build a new billion-dollar bridge over a river. We'll call it the Democratic Bridge, figuratively speaking. Talk about who put it together. Let people know that this was something the Democrats did. I almost spent too much time on the policy, not enough time on the politics.
And new this morning, the New York Times reporting on a private and reportedly emotional meeting between Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and President Biden that happened on July 13th. That was a little over 2 weeks after Biden's disastrous debate performance. The Times reporting that Schumer told the president, quote, if you run and you lose to Trump and we lose the Senate and we don't get back the House, that 50 years of amazing, beautiful work goes out the window, Mr. Schumer said. But worse, you go down in American history as one of the darkest figures. And he would end with a directive. If I were you, Mr. Schumer said, I wouldn't run. And I'm urging you not to run. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon. He is the ranking member on the Senate Finance Committee and also the author of the new book, It Takes Chutzpah, How to Fight Fearlessly for Progressive Change. Senator, good morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me back.
Congratulations on the book. I do want to start with this new bombshell at New York Times reporting and a little bit more of what they put into their story. It was July 13th, 2024, a humid summer afternoon just before 4. Mr. Schumer, the Democratic leader of the Senate, was about to make a blunt case to Mr. Biden that he needed to drop his bid for a second term. If there were a secret ballot among Democratic senators, Mr. Schumer would tell the president no more than 5 would say he should continue running. What is your reaction to this? And did you feel at this time that the president should have stopped his bid?
Well, first of all, Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden have a long relationship. Chuck was a credible and persuasive connection because they go back to the years working on Judiciary Committee issues. That was a real common bond for them. So I think that was the right move for Senate Democrats to reach out through Senator Schumer. I will tell you, and I've thought a lot about this too. I'm having town hall meetings this weekend at home. I've had 1,100 of them. And I've said to my staff, the day that I can't do these open to all town hall meetings, stand there, take unscripted questions for an hour and a half, I've got to do something else. And clearly that was part of this. I think that the White House hadn't had Joe Biden out there doing those kinds of sessions, and we saw the consequences.
Did you feel at the time when Biden was still running for president before that debate performance that he was up to the job? Did you have any concerns ahead of time?
During the first days of the term, we worked very closely together, and he was on the program. You know, I wrote the biggest investment in fighting climate change in American history. It's in the book, Taking the Long Game. President Biden was with us every single step of the way. We said we're going to reward people who reduce carbon. We're going to have an effort to lower energy prices. It stood together. He was all in. But clearly, after that big package went through in the first couple of years, I think he was not out on the trail as much, not in part of those spontaneous discussions, and it showed.
Do you blame him for Democrats losing the White House? Do you blame his decision to run for re-election?
Look, this was very personal, and everybody understood it. Obviously, it would have been better if he had made the judgment earlier, because on certain kinds of issues, like food prices, for example, there was discussion about what to talk about. I told everybody the focus has to be on those issues where the second word is bill. It might be medical bill, it might be gas bill, it might be rent bill. That's what people are talking about. We're dealing with inflation. That message got lost.
Did you know that Schumer had this meeting? Was this done with the knowledge of your colleagues and the support of your colleagues?
I mean, certainly Senator Schumer talks to all of us. The big joke is he knows all of our phone numbers by heart. So yes, there was no question that he was going to do this, that he was the person to do it. Those years of working together, particularly on judicial issues and the judiciary committees, made him a good fit for it.
And you were supportive of it?
Yes.
The president-elect is seeing more positive ratings heading into his second inauguration than he did the first time around. According to a new CNN poll, 46% of Americans view Trump favorably. That's his best number since just after the 2016 election. The same survey determined President Joe Biden's approval rating sits at a low of 36% right now. Despite that, he is defending his administration's record in a new exit interview.
I got a lot of criticism, understandably. We've invested more in red states than blue states.
That's in this book. That's in this report.
Well, for two reasons. One, red states really screwed up in terms of the way they handle their economy and the way they handle manufacturing, and the way they handle access to supply chains.
Joining us now to discuss, because it's Smirconish Friday, is CNN's Michael Smirconish. Michael, good morning. Wonderful to see you.
Good morning.
I honestly would just kind of take your reaction to how President Biden is handling this on his way out. I mean, he clearly is very defensive of his administration and is having a tough time saying goodbye.
So why are incoming President Trump's numbers for him so high? I think it's because of where outgoing President Biden's numbers are. As you've been pointing out, both in terms of job approval and favorability, they're related, but they're two distinct entities. Biden is leaving at an all-time low, 36% job approval. He's got a favorability of 33%. Donald Trump's numbers exceed in each of those categories. I think it's because of a comparison of Trump versus Biden at this low point. Here's the silver lining for outgoing President Joe Biden. When Jimmy Carter left office, he had a 34% job approval rating. In 2023, when Americans were asked retrospectively how they regarded President Carter, he had a 57% approval. And probably at the time of his passing, most recently, it would have been even higher. What's my point? My point is these things are fluid.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, your point is actually made by the fact that, people felt one way when Donald Trump left office, and it only took 4 years for them to decide, well, actually, that wasn't so bad. Our memory has changed. Michael, I want to ask you about this story that the New York Times just posted. It really walks through, it's an excerpt from a book or reporting for a book from two of their journalists, walking through Senator Chuck Schumer, the then Senate Majority Leader's role in pushing Joe Biden off the stage. They detail a meeting that he had with Biden the week before Biden ultimately decided to drop out. But there's an interesting piece in it about what Schumer, and I'm very interested in your take, but clearly there's an effort here to try to write the story about the way that Democrats didn't expose what was going on with President Biden at the time. Because here's what they report. They say, quote, for months, Mr. Schumer had been concerned that Mr. Biden was going to lose to Mr. Trump and cost Democrats Congress. It wasn't that he thought Mr. Biden was not capable of the job during their weekday conversations. The president often rambled, but he always rambled. Once in a while, Mr. Biden would forget why he had called. But Mr. Schumer thought little of it. He was convinced that Mr. Biden could handle the job. But with the Republican messaging machine deriding him relentlessly as old and senile, Democrats were hard-pressed to land any attacks on Mr. Trump. Long before the president's disastrous debate performance, Mr. Schumer had privately concluded that the barrier of Mr. Biden's age was too much for him to overcome. What's going on here? Is this revisionist history and this detail about Biden calling the majority leader and forgetting why?
So I have a couple of thoughts about this. First of all, probably Schumer is familiar with the data that you and I have just discussed, right? They were looking at internal numbers all along and seeing that it was probably an unwinnable race. And secondly, I'm convinced there's a whole backstory here we've never been told about the machinations of the Democratic leadership and how President Biden was actually forced out of the election. I mean, can I remind everybody that George Clooney not Chuck Schumer, not Barack Obama, not Nancy Pelosi. It was George Clooney writing that opinion piece that was a catalyst for the domino effect that then caused President Biden to step aside and get out of the race. I've always believed that we've never been told everything that went on and what all the warning signs that triggered the alarm bells were. And I just hope the story comes out, not in a negative way toward President Biden. I'm not, hoping for him being besmirched, but I just think we don't know everything, and we ought to.